Iran's most powerful military force is being hunted down and killed inside its own country, and almost nobody in mainstream American media is treating this with the gravity it deserves. That is a problem. That is a massive, dangerous, inexcusable problem. Because what is unfolding right now in Iran and across the broader Middle East is not a regional skirmish, it is not a diplomatic tension, it is not a geopolitical footnote. It is a full-blown escalating conflict with direct consequences for every single American watching this right now. The Iranian regime is crumbling under a campaign of targeted assassinations, internal fires, foreign pressure, and an American spy hunt that proves Tehran has been waging quiet war against us for years. So if the mainstream media won't cover this the way it deserves to be covered, then we will. We are talking about the systematic dismantling of the IRGC ships being sunk, a $10 million bounty hunt for Iranian hackers who attacked American infrastructure, NATO drawing up its defenses, and Iran openly raising money to kill the President of the United States. If that doesn't make your blood run cold, check your pulse. This is the story, and it starts right now. Before we go any further, if you're new here, subscribe, hit that notification bell, turn on all notifications, because the kind of coverage you're about to hear is exactly what you're not getting from the BRAS networks. But share this, send it to someone who needs to hear the truth. The comment section is open, and I want to know what you think is coming next. Now, let's get into it. Here's what we know. Over the last 10 days to 2 weeks, something extraordinary has been happening inside Iran. Extraordinary not in the celebratory sense, but in the historic, world-altering sense. IRGC officials, senior, powerful, dangerous men who have spent decades terrorizing their own population and funding proxy wars across the globe, are being killed on the streets of Iran, not on a battlefield, not in some foreign country, on Iranian streets, in Iranian cities, in broad daylight, on camera, by operatives who are so skilled and so precise that they strike and vanish before the regime can even issue a denial. The latest killing that has been making the rounds involves an IRGC aerospace force leader. Now, most Americans hear aerospace force and think satellites and rockets. And while that's partially true, what you need to understand is that the IRGC Aerospace Division is the unit responsible for Iran's ballistic missile program, their drone warfare capabilities, and the long-range strike systems that have been raining down on Iran's neighbors and threatening American assets across the region. This is not a bureaucrat. This is not a political figure. This is a man with blood on his hands who helped build the weapons that have been used to target American soldiers and American allies. And he is gone? The footage that has circulated shows a targeted ambush, 2 gunmen moving with precision and purpose, an AK-47 or similar weapon, an engagement with an individual near what appears to be an IRGC vehicle, and the style and model of that vehicle matches what we know about IRGC transport. The operatives engage, they neutralize, and they retreat. Clean, professional, deliberate. This is not a random act of violence. This is an intelligence-backed, professionally executed, targeted killing. And this is the 7th or 8th time something like this has happened in roughly a 2-week window. Think about what that means. The IRGC is an organization that has spent decades presenting itself as the iron fist of the Iranian regime, an untouchable force, a shadow army that operates with impunity both inside and outside of Iran's borders. They have murdered dissidents, they have tortured protesters, they have funded Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. They killed over 50,000 Iranians in December and January during the crackdowns following the outbreak of this war. 50,000 people and their own citizens. And now, inside the borders of Iran, someone or multiple someones are extracting a price for every single one of those crimes. Who is responsible? That is the question that every intelligence analyst, every journalist, and every government official is quietly debating right now. Is this Mossad? Is this the CIA executing a covert program? Is this the Kurdish resistance operating inside Iran? Is this a coalition of opposition groups that have finally reached the breaking point? The honest answer is we do not know for certain. But here is what we do know. These operations are not amateur, they are not opportunistic, they are coordinated, sequenced, and unrelenting. Whoever is behind this has resources, intelligence, and a very specific list. And that list is being worked through methodically. The Iranian regime wants its people to believe it is in control. These assassinations say otherwise, When your senior military officials cannot walk to their own vehicles without being shot, you are not in control. You are losing. Now let's talk about what is happening on the water, because that story is just as alarming and has far more direct economic implications for everyday Americans. Another ship has been taken out, according to the United Kingdom Maritime Trade. Operations, an uncrewed cargo vessel was struck by multiple projectiles, roughly 40 nautical miles southeast of Al-Muqsha, Yemen. The result? Authorities are calling it a constructive total loss. That means the ship is gone. The Houthi-linked accounts are claiming responsibility, framing the strike as retaliation because the vessel was allegedly supporting Saudi forces. Now, I want you to think about what that means in plain language. The Houthis, a proxy, militia-funded, armed, and strategically directed by Tehran, are continuing to bomb commercial shipping lanes in one of the most critical maritime corridors on the planet. Every time a ship goes down in that region, insurance rates spike, shipping companies reroute, cargo takes longer to arrive, prices go up, and who pays for that? You do. At the grocery store, at the gas pump, in your mortgage payment when supply chains tighten and inflation climbs. This is not an abstraction. This is a direct financial attack on American consumers being conducted by a terrorist militia, acting as Iran's fist in the Red Sea. And then there's the question of the Strait of Hormuz, which is where the story gets genuinely terrifying if you understand the economics involved. The Fars news agency, which is essentially the IRGC's mouthpiece, is reporting that Iran has seized an Emirati oil tanker in the strait and moved it to Bandar Abbas. As of now, the United Arab Emirates has not confirmed this, and neither has the United States military. That alone should give us some pause. We don't want to amplify unverified Iranian propaganda, but here is what is not in dispute. Iran's deputy parliament speaker has announced without ambiguity that Iran considers the Strait of Hormuz to be Iranian territory. He said that management of the strait will be carried out by Iran and Iranian security forces. He said they will recognize Oman's rights only if Oman proves them. Let that sink in. Approximately 20% of the world's oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. 20%. If Iran closes or controls that strait, the global economy doesn't slow down. It seizes. Gas prices in America would not just double. Economists have modeled scenarios where a full Hormuz closure would trigger price shocks that could push prices to levels this country has not seen in modern history. And the Iranians are standing there in 2026, telling the world that they own it and they will manage it. President Trump has made it clear we are not negotiating. So let's be honest about what that leaves on the table. But the conflict is not just playing out on the streets and the shipping lanes. Inside Iran itself, something is breaking. There has been another mysterious fire, this time in Gorgon City, and footage that has circulated online shows the blaze tearing through a public square. The Iranian regime will do what it always does: blame a gas leak, blame negligence, claim it was an accident. They've been giving that same script for years now. Gas leak, electrical fault, human error, and yet somehow the fires keep happening, the explosions keep occurring, the infrastructure keeps going dark in suspicious ways. When you look at the pattern, not just this fire, but the accumulated record of fires, explosions, power outages, and infrastructure failures inside Iran over the past several years, a different picture emerges. These are not a series of unfortunate accidents in a country that just has a lot of bad luck. These are indicators of a sustained campaign of sabotage. Whether that campaign is being run from outside Iran, from inside Iran, or from a combination of both, the effect is the same. The Iranian regime is losing control of its own territory. The apparatus of power that the IRGC has spent decades constructing, the surveillance, the enforcers. The infrastructure is being dismantled piece by piece. And here is the thing that the Iranian government absolutely does not want its own citizens to understand. This is not just coming from foreign adversaries. The Iranian people have been pushed to a point of fury that is almost impossible to overstate. In December and January, when the regime killed 50,000 of its own people in response to protests, it did not extinguish the resistance. It poured gasoline on it. Every family that lost a father, a brother, a daughter, a son, those families do not forget, they do not forgive. And in a country of over 80 million people, when you create that many grieving, furious families, you don't have a stability problem. You have a powder keg. The fires in Iran's cities, the assassinations of IRGC officials, the sabotage of infrastructure. These are the sounds of that powder keg beginning to go off. The regime can blame gas leaks all it wants. The people of Iran know the truth. Now let's talk about something that should have been the lead story on every major American news network and wasn't. The United States government is actively hunting 5 Iranian nationals, 5 IRGC-affiliated hackers who have been identified as the operatives responsible for conducting cyber attacks against American critical infrastructure, American water treatment systems, American banking networks, American power grids and communication systems. These were not probing attacks. These were not exploratory intrusions. These were targeted, deliberate attempts to disrupt the systems that keep American communities functioning. And the US government is now offering $10 million for information that leads to the capture of the individuals responsible. Let me be very direct about what this means, because I think a lot of Americans are not fully processing the gravity of what Iran has been doing. When we talk about cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, that phrase can sound technical and distant. So let me translate it. If Iranian hackers successfully compromised a water treatment system in an American city, they could contaminate the water supply. If they successfully hit banking infrastructure, they could freeze accounts, shut down transactions, and trigger a financial panic. If they hit power grids, hospitals go dark. People on life support die. Dialysis patients can't receive treatment. Emergency services get disrupted. This is not hypothetical. This is exactly what these 5 men were attempting to do to Americans, to your family, to your neighbors, to your community. And the audacity, the absolute staggering audacity of a government like Iran's, which publicly proclaims its hatred for the United States, while simultaneously sending operatives to attack our water and our banks, cannot go unanswered. The fact that we now have faces, we have names, and we have a $10 million reward attached to each of them is the first step toward accountability. But a reward is not justice. Justice looks like these men being found, arrested, tried, and spending the rest of their lives facing the full weight of American law for what they attempted to do to Americans. Citizens. These people believe they can hide. They believe they can run. Ask yourself, in the age of American intelligence, in the age of the NSA, in the age of a military and intelligence apparatus with the global reach of the United States, where exactly do you think you're going to go? When America hunts you, it does not stop, it does not get tired, it does not forget. You will simply spend your life running until the day you are found. And you will be found. And then we get to the part of this story that, frankly, should be generating wall-to-wall outrage in this country, but is instead being treated with the kind of muted, careful, diplomatic language that serves no one. Iranian state television, the official government-run media apparatus of the Islamic Republic of Iran, is openly raising money to fund the assassination of President Donald Trump. Not hinting at it, not implied threats. Openly, publicly, on air, soliciting funds from viewers to pay for the murder of a sitting United States president. Let me ask you something. If any other country on earth, any other government, any other state media outlet did this, what would the response be? What would happen? We already know the answer because we've seen what happens when threats of far lesser magnitude are made against American leaders. The full weight of American diplomatic, economic, and potentially military power comes down. And yet somehow, when Iran does it, there's a careful, measured response. A statement from the State Department, a diplomatic note. This is not adequate. When a foreign government raises money to kill your president, that is not a diplomatic incident. That is an act of war. And Iran is not stopping at the president. They have active bounties on United States soldiers. They have funding campaigns to target American citizens overseas. They are simultaneously threatening to launch ballistic missiles at NATO member states if this conflict continues to escalate. NATO, not just American forces, but the entire Atlantic Alliance, the foundational security architecture that has kept Western Europe stable since World War II, is now being directly threatened with Iranian ballistic missiles. And NATO officials are responding seriously, stating that the alliance is prepared to address any threat and will always do what is necessary to defend its allies. That is not a boilerplate press release. That is NATO telling Iran, we are watching and we are ready. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates, a country that, let's be honest, has had financial relationships with Iran that they should have severed years ago, has finally, as of August 19th, cut off all commercial and financial transactions with Tehran. This comes directly after Iran launched ballistic missiles at the UAE. Let me repeat that. Iran launched ballistic missiles at the United Arab Emirates, and the UAE's response, cutting financial ties, raises the obvious question. Why were those ties still intact the moment the first missile was launched? Why do we have a world where a country gets hit with ballistic missiles, and the initial response is to slowly, carefully disengage financially, rather than to respond with the full force of every diplomatic and military option available? The answer to that question tells you everything about how the international community has repeatedly failed to hold Iran accountable over decades of aggression. The situation in Iraq is adding another dangerous layer to all of this. The Iraqi Prime Minister is now receiving direct threats from Iran-backed militia groups operating inside Iraqi territory. These are not fringe actors. These are well-armed, well-funded proxy forces with deep Iranian command and control connections, and they are threatening the leader of a country that the United States has invested enormous blood and treasure in, stabilizing. On top of that, Iran recently attempted to assassinate the governor of Iraq's Kurdistan region, multiple drone strikes on his residence. That assassination attempt failed, but the message was received loud and clear. Iran is telling Iraq's leaders to comply or die. And then, as if to rub it directly in America's face, the Speaker of Iran's parliament flew into Baghdad to meet with the Iraqi president and reportedly with the Iran-backed militias themselves. This man, who represents a government that is raising money to kill the American president, that is threatening NATO with ballistic missiles, that is assassinating officials in neighboring countries, lands his plane in Iraq, like he owns the place. And the question I keep coming back to is, why did we allow that plane to land? Why, given everything this Iranian official represents, given the explicit threats his government is making against America and its allies, did we not use every available diplomatic and logistical lever to prevent that meeting from happening? The answer, again, is a failure of resolve, and failures of resolve have consequences. Iran has made its position on the Strait of Hormuz crystal clear. Their parliament deputy speaker did not equivocate, did not leave room for negotiation, did not extend any olive branch. He said, Iran controls the strait. Full stop. President Trump has matched that clarity. We are not negotiating. And when a regime that controls a critical global waterway says they will never give it up, and the President of the United States says we're not negotiating, the world is left with one remaining option. Not a comfortable option, not an easy option, not an option without consequences, but the only option that actually resolves the situation, a military solution. This is the moment that we need the American public to be clear-eyed, informed, and engaged. Not panicked, not paralyzed, but clear. Because here's the reality. The Iranian regime is not going to reform from within. Fast enough to matter, the IRGC is not going to suddenly decide to become reasonable partners in regional stability. The Houthis are not going to stop bombing ships because someone in Geneva wrote a strongly worded letter. Iran has calculated that the world will absorb their provocations, issue statements, impose sanctions, and ultimately do nothing that fundamentally threatens their grip on power. They have made that calculation based on 40+ years of getting away with it, but something has changed. The assassination campaign inside Iran tells us that someone, somewhere, has decided the old playbook is over. The spy Manhunt tells us that America is taking the cyber war seriously. The UAE cutting ties, NATO raising its readiness posture, Iraq being squeezed from both sides. These are the signals of a situation that is approaching a breaking point. And the people who will ultimately determine which way this breaks are the ones watching this right now. An informed public demands accountability from its leaders. An informed public does not let these stories disappear into the news cycle. An informed public understands that what happens in the Strait of Hormuz, what happens to the 5 IRGC hackers who attacked American water systems, what happens to a government that openly tries to fund the assassination of an American president, all of it matters. All of it has a price tag, and that price tag gets paid by ordinary Americans one way or another. The people of Iran have already been paying the price for decades. 50,000 killed in December and January alone. Decades of oppression, surveillance, and brutality at the hands of the IRGC. Those people deserve their country back. They deserve to live without fear of their own government. And the targeted killings, the fires, the internal disruption, whether you agree with the methods or not, represent something real. They represent a people who have decided that enough is enough. That is not terrorism. That is the human refusal to be permanently crushed, and the world should be paying attention to it. What comes next will define the trajectory of this conflict for years. Will the international community find a way to actually constrain Iranian aggression, or will it keep treating each individual provocation as an isolated incident to be managed quietly? Will the United States deliver real consequences for the cyber attacks on American infrastructure, or will $10 million reward posters be the end of the story? Will the assassinations inside Iran accelerate the regime's internal collapse, or will the IRGC find a way to recalibrate and tighten its grip? These are the questions that matter. These are the questions that should be driving coverage, driving policy, driving public conversation. Iran is being hunted from within, threatened from without, and economically isolated by the day. The regime knows it. The IRGC knows it. And the people of Iran who have suffered for so long under this brutal, murderous government know it too. The question is whether the rest of the world is paying close enough attention to understand what it is witnessing. History is being made right now, not in some slow, textbook way that we'll analyze in retrospect. Right now, in real time, and you need to be watching. If this coverage matters to you, then do something about it. Subscribe right now, share this with someone who needs to hear it, hit the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Because this situation is moving fast and updates are coming daily, drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think the United States should do about Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. I want to know if you think these assassinations inside Iran change the calculus. I want to hear from you. This is not a one-way broadcast. This is a conversation about things that actually matter. The mainstream networks will move on to the next story tomorrow. They will find something easier, something safer, something that doesn't require them to ask hard questions or deliver uncomfortable answers. That is not what we do here. We stay on it, we follow it wherever it leads, and we tell you the truth. Not the comfortable version, not the version that protects the powerful, but the version that serves you. That is the only version worth telling. Stay locked in. More updates are coming. The story is not over. It is just getting started.